join me in welcome Professor Sevandi Jayapadi, a leading voice in marine ecosystems, coastal management, and biodiversity conservation in Sri Lanka. Professor Sevandi Jayapadi is a renowned academic and environmental advocate specializing in marine ecosystems, coastal management, and biodiversity conservation. Currently serving as the chairperson of the Marine Environmental Protection Council, she has dedicated her career to advancing research on coastal ecosystems, marine conservation, and sustainable management of Sri Lanka's marine resources. Also, she has completed her PhD in zoology at the University of Aberdeen in United Kingdom. She has served in key roles such as National Coordinator for the Sri Lanka Site COP18 and the team leader for the 6th National Report on Biodiversity and member of the Commonwealth Blue Carbon Initiative. Professor Jayapadi is also a professor at Viable University of Sri Lanka. She has contributed to shaping national policy and academia around marine protection and sustainable development. Professor Jayapadi has received several national and international awards, including the Commonwealth Doctoral Award and multiple scientific publication accolades. We are truly privileged to have our wisdom and insight with us this evening. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Jayapadi. And now to guide today's conversation with skill and thoughtfulness, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening, Mr. Imaduwa Kriyadarshana. Mr. Imaduwa, bright profession, an architectural practitioner, a green technologist, and an educator in management, architecture, landscaping, and the English language. He is one of the specialists in native orchids of Sri Lanka, a proud past member of the Young Zoologists Association, and current member of the Butterfly Conservation Society in Sri Lanka. He passionately believes in the principles of environmental sustainability when it comes to modernization of our society and always takes a front seat when it comes to the need to provide education or guidance to the needy. We are very fortunate to have him lead this today's evening discussion. Mr. Imadu, the session is all yours. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasana. Thanks a lot. Very eminent scientists, two scientists that we have today in our panel. One of them, one of the most senior scientists, and one of my gurus, like even if he may not know, but from his youngest days at Colombo University, March for Conservation, and I was following that march. And I was an ardent follower of him since I was a kid, actually. And that is what prompted me to become a conservationist as well. So we have one of the prominent conservationists and an educator, scientist, and an extremely well-positioned policymaker into this country. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Kotagama. Thank you, sir. And then I have my dear friend, if I can call you, Dr. Sevandi. Thanks to Dr. Sasu and Dr. Samantha Gunasekara, I came to know you in a later stage, but I'm more than privileged to know you and associate with you. And you are one of the finest speakers, most eloquent speakers I have ever come across onto these subjects. So it's a privilege again to have you around and to talk to you about these things. The subject today we have is based on change and resilience. But the problem is, like, I mean, as I see it, what is change? Because in many spheres in this society, we talk about change, bringing in change. We aspire change for various changes. If you look at it, this issue from a universal point of view, the change has driven all the way to where we are from a universal point of view as well. The evolution itself is a change, a slow moving change. And then there are catastrophic changes like ice ages or meteor hits or fires, sudden bursts of flames and stuff like that, which has led the pathway to our superiority as a species, human beings. So why, my question is, my very first question is to me being the man in the the podium, I would like to go to Dr. Sevandi, as it is the norm to be the ladies first, to ask this question from you. I hope that Dr. Sarath Kotagama is not upset about it. And Dr. Sevandi, what is your take on change? Why, if it is so essential for our survival, the change itself, why we are so worried about it, or why we are trying to change the change or stop the change for that matter? Dr. Sevandi, over to you, ma'am.
So I think Dr. Sevandi is having some connection issue. I
Can
think
we
we
move?
can
Can
move
we
on
go to
to
Dr.
yeah.
Kotagama? So is it okay if I come back to you and like ask you the same question, throw it at you?
Yeah, I think. Thank you, Mudhu, Priyadarsham.
Yep. Thank you.
You put me on the mango tree or whatever it is. That makes it more difficult.
No, I did not. I did not.
No, but
It's my honest
thank you.
feeling.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. But I'm also very pleased to note that we have over 500 participants, because
Yes.
it really means that we do have something that we need to learn to take forward. So
Yeah.
coming to the question directly, part of it you did analyze and present. To me, the most important thing is that as human beings, we seem not to understand change. We we think we know change, but do we really know the change per se, in the sense like what you just said? Evolutionary change, societal changes, all these things are happening.
Yes.
At the end of the day, this change changes you, changes oneself.
Yes.
And that is where the issue comes about. When changes change the person, if the person is not ready to accept the change, to
Yes.
make changes for the betterment of the future, then we have conflict situations. I think I shouldn't be saying this, but you can't prevent it. I think the best example is what is happening in the world today.
Yes.
See, we have one single person who thinks you can get rid of civilizations overnight.
Exactly.
And things like that, which
Yeah.
means to me that that is the exact question I am posing myself. Why can't a person recognize that this world is not just one kind? It is a very changing world, and it will
Yep.
keep to change differently into the future.
Yep.
And we humans, fortunately, compared to most other organisms in the world, have found ourselves to be able to adapt or accustom ourselves to the changes that are happening, and to make the best out of it, so that the whole civilization is not going to be destroyed, inclusive of the fauna and flora.
Yep.
And that is where we sometimes differ in terms of our picture of what change is and how we should change to the betterment. So,
Yep.
because many people do not realize that we are an element of nature and we are not something outside nature. We are part and parcel of it. And whatever that happens in nature is going to affect us someday, someplace, sometime. Now, these are the things that we humans think that as a species that is dominantly visible and dominantly changing the landscapes and all the rest of it, structurally doing what was not part of the natural landscape, all of these things feel that we are dominant over what is natural. Unfortunately, nature has its ways of showing that it is not the case. Even the mindset of the person, when he is reacting in a way to kill other people, I think is a reaction of nature in him as a reaction to what he is trying to think as dominance. So change is a very, very interesting factor. And I think we must try to understand it in our own way. And primarily, I would say change to be better, to recognize the change and go forward, and not change to make it worse for anybody. When I'm saying not just human, but all plants and all animals considered. Together, I think we have. However, we must also realize that none of us is permanent on this planet. If we think of an evolutionary process as the means for change in the planet, 4.5 billion years ago, and here we are, everything has changed over time. Fauna came, flora came, they went. So should be the humans in a way. But we think that we don't do that. There's nothing like that. So I think there is this fallacy. We will go away. As individuals, we will go away anyway. But as mankind, I believe that someday our dominance on this planet is going to subside and we will also be changing into something else. So there was Homo neanderthals, Thalis and Hobelis and all of these people. And here we are Homo sapien. And who knows what is going to come next, right? So accepting that change and of course, dominating. Now, I'll just give you the last clip and stop here. You see, people are talking about artificial intelligence. And I said, what are you talking about artificial? It is not artificial intelligence. To me, it is assisted intelligence.
Yes.
We are making use of our own creation to help us to become better than what we were. So why do you want to call it artificial, right? Simply because it is in a machine, don't say that it is artificial because the machine is our creation. Exactly. So I would like to say that it is artificial intelligence and therefore we are still the dominant of the species. Don't ever say, because when people are saying the machines are going to take over, I would just tell them, look, this is not new theory. Way back in, if I can recall, way back in 1990s, when Arthur C. Clarke made 2006 Space Odyssey, he said that, and he showed it by film, that this can happen. But that does not mean that the machine is bad, because in that film, the machine was good. At the end of the day, it had better mind than the human mind to take over the machine and not allow it to be destroying the planet. So it's an assistant for us. So I think that is the change that we should look for. Birds come, times change, technology changes, but I think it must always reflect for the benefit of mankind and nature as a whole.
As a whole. Wow. Thank you, sir. That's very comprehensive answer. Thank you so much. Change for the sake of not change for the sake of change, because like change is going to be there always, like it's going to be like our shadow, but how we're going to bring about like meaningful change.
Yes.
Dr. Sevandi, are you there?
I'm very much there now.
Fantastic. Good to hear you, ma'am. Over to you.
I'm there.
Okay. Over to you, ma'am. Like, did you hear what I said? Like, I mean, I'm not going to go and repeat the whole thing, but
if you can repeat the question, please.
Okay. the question was like, I mean, the change is so prevalent all over the place. Like, I mean, in the universe, in our societies and in our lives and everywhere. Like, I mean, change is the norm. Like, I mean, change is what propels us to where we are now. But we aspire like change as in like something we got to avoid, or we got to manage, or we got to do certain changes to survive, and change for the sake of change. So I would like to know what your take on this change, like why we are so worried, or why we are trying to work on this change, and where we are looking at like for answers.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ima. I think it's simply because change changes. Change is a natural process, but it changes. Change is a part of dynamic nature,
Yeah.
and no one likes it, not just us. Change is not liked by anything that is living. Because with that, you are talking about shifts from your comfort zones. It's also challenging to your, it's what kind of genes you have in order to resist and to adapt. So change is a worrying thing because it checks your plasticity. What is plasticity? Or ability to withstand why is it a worrying for us today? Because if we look at the organisms, you can broadly put them into case strategists and R strategists. Case strategists that have evolved and have become specialized and have very small tolerance limits. They will take long years to mature, take a long time to learn. And for such organisms, change is a worrying thing. And when change is happening in a world like today, when we know that our strategists are going to, and those with narrow tolerance limit is going to be anyway eliminated as a part of the process unless they change. It's worrying to humans because we know then one outcome from the change is going to be a less diverse place than what we are used to. But then again, as Professor Kotagama said, it's something that we all have to live with because change has been happening. And with the change, who suits to the right scenario has always been emerging. I think we all are going through a phase like that, we humans too. Being a Homo sapiens today, but even among us, see the change. I mean, you take people living in Africa, living in Europe, living in Asia. I mean, if you put them all together, I sometimes wonder whether we are still Homo sapiens.
Yes, that's for sure.
Right? So at the end of the day, ඒක හරියට මෙන්න මෙහෙම වැඩක් හිම. අපි මේක ගැන කතා කරොත් එහෙම මෙන්න මේ විදිහට. දැන් ගඟක ලොකු මාළු ගොඩක් ඉන්නවා නම් මාළු වල ලොකු විවිධත්වයක් තියෙනවා නම් මානවයා හැටියට අපිට ඒක හරි වැදගත්. අපි ජෛව
Ma'am, if you have to, you can turn off the video and just let the audio come through.
ඒ අය නැතිවීමත් එක්ක අපිට ඒ වෙන වෙනස දරා ගන්න බැරුව යනවා ඉමා. මම හිතන්නේ ඒ හින්දා තමයි මානවයා හැටියට අපි අද මේක ගැන කතා කරන්නේ. හැබැයි අපි ඒක කතා කරද්දී අමතක කරපු දෙයක් තියෙනවා අම්මා. ඒ තමයි යම් දවසක අපි මේ කතා කරන ඔබත් මමත් ඒ කියන්නේ හෝමෝ සේපියන්ස් කියන එක්කෙනත් මම හිතන්නේ නැති වෙලා යනවා කියලා. නමුත් ඒක කතා කිරීමට හැකි බුද්ධියක් අපිට මේ මොහොතේ ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. So for me, change is a welcoming thing because if there's no change, what would happen is there will be no species that would fit to what is to come. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am, and that's very extremely elaborative. And yeah, ma'am, if you want, you can turn off the video while you are talking. That will be that will clear the audio a little bit more better. But it's good. I mean, we can hear what you're saying, but time to time it just freezes out. Anyway, I mean, as you quite rightly said, both of you all quite rightly said, like, I mean, evolutionarily, we have got the upper hand thanks to the changes, not because that we possess so much superior hardware. We don't have the long trunks, or we don't have the big teeth, or the most venomous solutions in our body, but we got a brain. We got a capacity to think, outthink everybody else. So here we are as Homo sapiens, and we are thinking about our own change. Now, when we are thinking about our own change, we are worried that it will itself eliminate us. Therefore, like, I mean, we are talking about, or our focus has shifted on to the resilience or other factors that we can squeeze ourselves into the time frame within this universe. But I would like to go back to Dr. Kotagama, because I remember, like, as I earlier said, the March for Conservation, that is when we started talking about conservation. And then the focus shifted towards the climate change. And while we are talking about, I mean, I'm sure Dr. Kotagama was well aware of it, and he's a visionary himself. So, but I had no clue that climate going to change because of that rate. But then later on, we started talking about the adaptation, climate adaptation. And now we are talking about climate resilience. So I would like to know your take on this, like how we came about this, where have we failed, like, to adapt ourselves?
Thank you. Right. So further to what Sevandi did mention and what I just earlier, and the question that you gave, yes, very many years ago, we talked about the changing situations in the world, looking at not just the fauna and flora declining across the world, but the general environment changing, and we were aware of the fact that the temperatures may, or at least the average temperatures, are going to change. So it was not unusual to see that we were working on climate change or climate concepts and things like that way back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Despite all of that, we know that, as again, you know, it's evidently there the world over, there are those who think that there is no climate change, right? At least, again, sadly to say, that the most developed country in the world, the leadership says that there's no climate change, and they do everything to go against it. Despite that, the United Nations and the other sane scientists across the world realize that there is a change, and you don't need the science to understand that there is a change. Today, the climate is changing in our own country. The heat that we are experiencing today is, but I think a little explanation is needed here, because climate change in what way? Because very many people do not realize that the average changes with respect to when we use the word climate and talk about climate change is not weather change. You see, climate and weather are two very interesting words. Yeah. And unless we do realize the two words carefully, we would not be able to recognize what we are talking about. You see, in the climate sciences, we are told that the climate is something that is recognizable within a span of about 70 plus years. So if we can recognize a change in 70 plus, the minimum level being 40 plus years, then we would say that the prevailing background conditions of the planet is resulting in a climate change. But weather change is not that. Weather change is the change that we experience daily, morning and night, evening and daytime, all the time. We are experiencing. Like, okay, the current change in the temperature may or may not be part of climate, but it definitely is a weather change because we are experiencing this in comparison to last year. So last year at this time, it was not as hot as this. It was fairly okay. But is it climate change? Well, then you have to go back all the way and say, well, 40 plus years ago, the temperature was such, and today the temperature is this, and therefore there is a distinct change. You see, many years ago, I can recall one Professor Dr. Tambaya or Professor Tambaya, who was in the meteorology, not our botany Tambaya, gave a paper at one of the last sessions and showed that Sri Lanka has a 10-year cycle of weather change, not climate change. He said we go through a 10-year weather change, so that there is the heat coming up and the temperature going down and all that in a pattern of 10 years. Now, let me stop there in English and clarify this a little bit because I saw a snippet coming up that can you help us with Sinhala also. See, it's very important. In Sinhala කරනවා නම් එකත් වචන වල අර්ථය තේරුම් ගැනීම හරිම වැදගත්. දැන් මෙතන අපි කතා කරන්නේ දේශගුණයයි කාලගුණයයි. දේශගුණික වෙනසක් ඇතිවීම සඳහා විද්වතුන්ගේ මතයේ තියෙන්නේ අවම වශයෙන් අවුරුදු 40ක කාලයක් තුළ වෙනසක් සිදුවීම පවතින්න ඕනේ. 70 තමයි හොඳම කියලා. එතකොට යම්කිසි පරාසයක් තියෙනවා. කාලගුණය කියන්නේ කාලය අනුව මේ වෙලාවේ හැටියට වෙන දෙයක්. එතකොට කාලය අනුව සිදුවෙන වෙනස දකිනවා. දැන් උදාහරණයකට ගත්තොත් අද මේ වෙනකොට ලංකාව තුල උෂ්ණත්වය විශාල වශයෙන් වැඩි. දැන් මේක දේශගුණික විපර්යාසයක ප්‍රතිඵලයක්ද කාලගුණයේ වෙනසක්ද? දැන් දේශගුණයේ විපර්යාසයක් නිසා මේක වෙනවයි කියලා කියන්න නම් දේශගුණික පදනම අවශ්‍යයි. එතකොට අවම වශයෙන් මේ වෙනස අවුරුදු 40ක කාල සීමාවක් තුල වර්ධනය වෙමින් පවතිනවා කියන එක අපිට පෙන්වන්නට අවශ්‍යයි. එහෙම නොවනව නෙවෙයි. නමුත් අවශ්‍යයි. නමුත් පැහැදිලිවම කාලගුණික වෙනසක් කියන එක අපිට අවබෝධ වෙනවා. මොකද ගිය අවුරුද්දේ කාලගුණයයි මේ අවුරුද්දේ කාලගුණයයි ගත්තොත් හාත්පසින්ම වෙනස්. ඉතින් මෙන්න මේක තේරුම් ගන්නකොට තමයි වෙනස කියන සංකල්පය change කියන එක ගැන අපි මේ කතා කරන්නේ. එය වුණත් අපිට අවබෝධයකට අවශ්‍ය. පරිණාමික වෙනසයි, දෛනික කාලීන වෙනසයි, දෛනික වෙනසයි, ක්ෂණික වෙනසයි කියන මේ එක එක වචනයක් යෙදෙනකොට වෙනසේ ප්‍රතිඵලය ඒ අනුව වෙනස් වෙනවා.
Yes.
පරිණාමික වෙනස සිදු වෙන්නේ අවුරුදු මිලියන ගානකට වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Yes.
මිනිසුන් වෙනස් වුණා. සතුන් වෙනස් වුණා. ශාක වෙනස් වුණා. හැබැයි මේවා හිතුවටේ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේවා වෙන්න කාලයක් යනවා. හිමින් වෙන්නේ. නමුත් වාර්ෂික වෙනස්කම් තියෙනවා. අපිට නැතු වුණත් වැඩි අපිට වර්ෂාව ඇති වෙනවා නැති වෙනවා, ඊසාන තියෙනවා, මෝසන් තියෙනවා, ඊට පස්සේ අපිට නීති දෙක තියෙනවා. ඒ විතරයි අපිට තියෙන්නේ. නමුත් අපි සමකයෙන් ඈත් වෙලා ඝර්ම කලාපීය ප්‍රදේශයෙන් ඈත් වෙලා සීසිල් කලාපයට යනවා නම් ඔන්න සීසිල් ඍතුවේ තියෙනවා, වසන්ත ඍතුව කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. ඔය වගේ ස්ප්‍රින්ග්, සමර්, ඕටම්, වින්ටර් ඔය ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා. ඒකම දෛනික වෙනසකුත් තියෙනවානේ. උදේ හවසත් වෙනස් වෙනවානේ. දැන් ඔකට හොඳම දේ තමයි මුහුදේ බලන්නකෝ. මුහුදේ වතුර උඩට යනවා පල්ලෙහාට යනවා. දවසට දෙපාරක් උඩට යනවා, දෙපාරක් පල්ලෙහාට යනවා. නමුත් වෙරළට ගිහිල්ලා ඔක බලා හිටියට වෙන්නේත් නැහනේ. නමුත් ඒක වෙනවා. ඒක දෛනික වෙනසක්. ඒක උදම් මැනීම් කියලා කියන්නේ tidal changes කියන එක වෙනවා. ඉතින් හිරු වෙනවා, නගිනවා, බහිනවා. හිරු යන්නේ කොහොමද? ඇති වෙන්නේ මේ ඔක්කොම. එතකොට සරලව කිව්වොත් if you think very carefully, we are in the midst of change. අපි වෙනස්කම් මැද ඉන්නේ මේ වෙනස්කම් මැද ඉන්න අපි ඒ වෙනස් තේරුම් අරගෙන අපේ ජීවිකාව සාර්ථක කර ගැනීම තමයි මිනිසා කියන සතා හැටියට අපි උත්සාහ කරන්නේ. අන්න එතනදී අනිත් හැම ජීවියෙක්ම කරන්නේ එච්චරම තමයි. මේ වෙනස්කම් ස්වභාවයෙන් සිදුවෙන ගෝලයේ කරකින නිසා සමකය හරහා කරකින එක අපිට වෙනස් කරන්න බෑනේ. නමුත් දැන් කියනවා අපි ටිකක් වැඩියෙන් දෝලනය වෙලා කියලා. We have changed a little bit in the axis කියලා කියනවා.
Yes.
How much that is going to make a
We don't
difference, we
know.
don't know, but we have been told, right? Maybe the Artemis 2 will tell us how much we have changed.
Probably.
රවුමට
Probably this
ගිහිල්ලා
time.
එනකොට කියයි මෙච්චර වෙනස්
Yeah.
වෙලා කියලා.
Yeah.
ඒ කෙසේ වුවත් all of these changes change what is happening here. So we have to start thinking, do we have the ability to prevent it or resist it or adapt to it? ඔය වචන එනකොට මෙතන තියෙනවා. So let me just put this word and stop again, because we were going to talk about resilience.
Yes.
So I have broken it down into a different subtle way. Resist, alliance. That is what means resilience is. Resist,
Okay.
ප්‍රතිරෝධයක්, alliance, සම්බන්ධ කිරීමක්.
සම්බන්ධ
මේ
කිරීම.
එකක් ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරන ගමන් අරකට සම්බන්ධ කරගෙන යන්නේ කොහොමද? ඉස්සරහට. That is what we are trying to do. That is what resilience really is. We are not saying don't, we are not saying we will, but we say, can we adjust to be with this? I think that is the important message we have to go forward.
So staying with you to continue with your valuable comments. I would like to ask you a little bit more towards the resilience part. Now, during the COVID period, we had a slowdown. Like, I mean, as you quite rightly said, like, I mean, there are arguments for and against that our human activities has created all this havoc all over the place, climate change and weather changes, weather patterns, and like it's warmer than last year and all that la-di-da. But during the COVID period, there are the certain scientific the studies that has revealed that like we had slowed down in our human activities, and we have given a slight window of opportunity for the environment to take over and do its own thing. So when it comes to that, do you think like taking that as a lesson, taking that as a preview, that we have a chance that we can adhere to the certain rules and regulations or guidelines so that we can get back to some kind of a normalcy or some kind of a track there where, as you quite rightly said, like to kind of like protect up to a certain extent our comfort zone? Can we do that? Do you think that we have done enough studies for that based on your own experience? Professor, Dr. Sarath Kotagama, I'm talking to you, sir.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were referring to Sevandi. No, yeah. Okay, thank you. If I'm just to continue.
Yes.
Good that you took COVID. I did send a couple of slides to Sadipa about COVID, but let me put a little more confusion into the picture, if you don't mind, because with about 500 people listening, I think it's important.
As long as you sort it out at the end of it, okay?
No, because the topic is that, no, Venesa, right? Change. Can we be resilient? Can we adjust to become better? So we need to be confusing ourselves better, right? The COVID slides have come. So you see, when the COVID came, there were very interesting outcomes, which we learned. First one, it says, shows us the importance of the microbes as an element of biodiversity, which is very interesting, because when you look at biodiversity conservation, which of course is a pseudo-cognate, meaning a word that came up, of course, coined by people. You know, it is not something that, well, all words are coined by us, but this was not even accepted in science till 1998, and subsequently, the සිංහලෙන් කිව්වා නම් අපිට සිංහල වචනයක් තිබ්බේ නැහැ අත වශයෙන්ම මේකට 92 මේක පිළිගන්නකොට සිංහලෙන් අපිට වචනයක් තිබ්බේ නැහැ. අපි ඒක හැමදාම කපුදු ජීව විද්‍යාව තුල තියෙන වචනය ජෛව විවිධත්වය කියලා වෙනස් කරගත්තා. නැත්තම් ජීව විවිධත්වය කියන එකයි ජෛව විවිධත්වය කියන එකේ ලොකු වෙනසක් තියෙන්න බෑ. නමුත් අපි ඒක ජෛව කියලා වෙනස් කරගත්තා. ඉතින් ඒ වගේම තමයි Yes. So in the same sense, the first is that we thought always the big animals are the big people. And those are the ones that we should be very much concerned about, right? Elephants, birds, fish, and let's say reptiles, amphibians. Even amphibians are not very much. Microbes, they were not in the picture. The microbes were always problematic animals. You know, all the sicknesses were brought about by all these organisms. So we realized that they can make a massive difference. What a lot of people don't know is that though COVID came in 2019, if I'm not wrong, 2016, no, somewhere there, right?
So 2019.
2019,
Yep.
we have had what are called emerging infectious diseases, more than 30 by that time in the world. But none of them became
No.
like COVID. That was the only difference, right?
Yes.
So everybody started realizing these fellows which we can't even see, which are invisible in a sense, can become disastrous to the planet. The second one was Sadipa dekata yanawada? Right. Second, it reminded us that nature is not caring or kind, and that under the right or wrong circumstances, people will not feel a natural love for non-human life. Did we like the microbes when the COVID was with us? No, we didn't like it, right? But all the time we want the elephants to be with us, we want the leopard to be with us, we want the reptiles to be here, but still we don't like the microbes, right? We will do anything to get rid of them by antibiotics and whatever it is. But here it opened our eyes. They matter. So the third one, right? Outbreaks show that science matter. Because if we were to get over this problem, we couldn't just sit and wait. We couldn't, of course, we know there were those panias and all of those things in this country. But the reality was that we overcame the issue, even though there are many skeptics. විශාල පිරිසක් මේක පිළිගන්න කැමති නෙවුණත් විශේෂයෙන්ම සංවර්ධිත රටවල කට්ටිය පිළිගත්තේ නැහැ. එන්නත කියන එකෙන් මේක වෙනස් කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මම පොඩි රහසක් කියන්නම්. එන්නත ඉදිරිපත් කරනකොට අපි ලෝක සම්මතයන් ඔක්කොම බිඳලා ආවේ. We broke down all the world norms.
Norms, yes.
Yes,
Guidelines
the
and
norms of the World Health Organization is that you cannot introduce a vaccine without a minimum of 10 years testing. But did we wait 10 years? No. But see what we did. When the vaccine came out, එන්නත එනකොටම අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලාම දුන්නේ කාටද කියලා හිතන්න බලන්න. මේ අපි වගේ හෙට අනිද්දා යන්න ඉන්න අයට. So I call them the disposables. හරි විසි කරන්න පුළුවන් නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. 65න් වැඩි අයටයි දුන්නේ. ඒකට ප්‍රධාන හේතුවක් තිබ්බා. නැනවත්ව හිතලා කල්පනා කෙරුවා මේක වැරදුනාම යන්නෙත් ඕගොල්ලෝනේ.
ඔව්.
ඔහි ගියාවේ. හරි? හරි. ඒක හිතමුකෝ කමක් නැහැ කියලා. ඊළඟට දුන්නේ කාටද කියලා බලන්න. ඊළඟට දුන්නේ 13න් පල්ලෙහාට. ඇයි 13න් පල්ලෙහාට? ඒගොල්ලෝ හදන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද හදන පරම්පරාව තාම මැද ඉන්නවා.
Oh,
They
got to be protected.
Yeah, you can bring them out. Even
Yes.
if all the children died because of COVID, if the producers were left,
Yes.
the children could be brought back. And then, even then, see, very strategic. We didn't come down from the top, we came from the bottom up. Okay, 13 worked. Let's go to the 15 plus, 18, and then said everybody. So we set the norms aside. Science did matter. විද්‍යාවයි මේකට තීන්දුව දුන්නේ. විද්‍යාව තිබුණේ නැත්නම් අපිට ඒ වගේ තීන්දුව ගන්න බැරි වෙනවා. So that's the third. Fourth one, I'm going to quickly go through. හතරවෙනි එක සදීපා.
Yeah.
Right. Shows that governments matter. දැන් අපි හුඟක් දෙනා රජයන්ට කැමති නෑ. We don't like the governments, but governments matter. If not for the governance that prevailed at that time within countries and in the world, we would have not been able to get over it. Right. Go to the fifth one. Reveals that the global economic system is not immutable. Locus ආර්ථික තත්ත්වය බොහොම සුළු මේ කොහෙවත් ඉන්න සුජ්ජිර දීවෙක් නිසා කලා වැටුණා. අපේ ලංකාවේ ආර්ථිකය බිඳුවටම වැටුණා සංචාරක ව්‍යාපාරය. හරි? Oh, ඉතින් බලන්නකො. So look at it. Just came down to zero. Our tourism came to zero just because of an invisible microbe.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, go to the sixth, sorry. COVID reveals starkly that a conservation model based on global travel is not sustainable. අපි සංරක්ෂණ කාර්යයන් නැත්නම් පරිසරය ගැන නොසිතා කරන ක්‍රියාවලියන් තුල what we are going to do without concern to the environment, at least in the tourism, because this was in the tourism field that I spoke about, we are not going to recover, right? Fortunately we have, and sustainability තිරසාරත්වය කියන එක we have agreed since 1992. So if we don't think in that model into the future, these changes that can happen at any time, we will not be able to be resilient or resist or be aligned and make a better point of it. So I think there's making ඉවරයි නේද සදීප? Okay, seventh one, COVID has reawakened our values of nature. So today we appreciate nature. Of course, by now we have forgotten, right? මේ වෙනකොට අපිට ඔක්කොම අමතක වෙලා හරි ලෝකේ සුද්ධ ජීවීන් නේ මහ ජීවීන්වත් ඉන්නවද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. We don't know whether there are small or big animals. All values of human itself has gone today. Anyway, it has brought up the values of nature. So thank you. I think that should be enough to take forward.
Yes, thank
so
you.
It's all about nature conservation and all that what we are talking.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. I have very little time for left for Dr. Sevandi. Ma'am, depending on your work, like I mean, based on your work, you're pretty much into the change and managing change and the resilience in these days work, and in terms of policy making, in terms of like advising the various bodies, private as well as public. What is your take on this, ma'am? Like, how can you share your knowledge, like, and your experience to this gathering? Dr. Sevandi.
හැමතිස්සෙම ඉමා කතා කරද්දි මට ඇහෙන්නේ නැතු වෙනවා. මට හින්දා හරි. නමුත් මම කැමරා එක ඔෆ් කරන්නම් ඉස්සෙල්ලාම.
Yes.
කැමරා එක ඔෆ් කරලා කරමු සෙවන්දි.
ඔව් ඒක තමයි සර් මම කරා. ඉමා මගෙන් අහපු ප්‍රශ්නේ ආපහු කියන්න මට බලන්න.
Okay. Based on this අපේ මේ resilience ගැන කතා කරන එක ගැන I'm not going to talk to you about the change and the climate change, but like I mean you were really in the thick of it, like adaptation and as well as the resilience part, like in terms of policy making, advising the private bodies or the public bodies, the world bodies, the universe and everything. So based on your experiences, what kind of experience that you can, or what kind of knowledge that you can share with us in terms of work that you are going to do, like you are carrying on?
Okay, thank you, Ima. I hope everyone can hear me now. Lovely. So, Ima, I'm going to now, from Kotagama's thoughts, which were very, very thought-provoking, I'm going to go into a very different area.
Yeah.
That is, now we are here, we are talking all these things, and we are talking about science. We are doing science because we want to survive. We as humans really don't want to leave the planet, although it's going to happen. Now, however, at the same time, change is partly because we have changed the planet. Its function. So the next part of my presentation, or rather my talk, is going to give you some ideas how, by following the nature, some of the change can be halted. This is what I call biomimicry at its best. ඕක තමයි මම දැන් කරන්න යන්නේ. දැන් පොඩි වැඩක් තියෙනවා මට කරන්න මෙතනදී. මම හිතනවා මට ෂෙයා කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා මගේ ස්ක්‍රීන් එක. ඒක මම බලන්නම්. මම දැන් මේක උත්සාහයක් දරනවා. එහෙම වුණොත් හැම දෙයක් හැම එකක්ම ලේසි වෙනවා.
Pradeepa, have you given her the...
Yes, sir. Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Great.
මම හිතනවා මගේ ස්ක්‍රීන් එක දැන් පේනවා ඇති කියලා.
Yes, we can. We can clearly see that. Thank you.
නමුත් මම මේක සිංහලෙන් කරන්න හිතුවේ resilience කියන එකට තියෙන ලොකුම උත්තරේ තියෙන්නේ biomimicry වල. ඒකට හේතුව අපිට biomimicry ගත්තාම ඔකේ කොටස් තුනක් තියෙනවා. ඒක ෆෝම් එක වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඒක ප්‍රොසෙස් එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, නැත්නම් සිස්ටම් එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් මම පෙන්වන්න යන්නේ මේකේ එක එකට ගිහිල්ලා මෙන්න මේකෙන් වැඩගත්ත ක්‍රමය. අපි හැමෝම දන්නවනේ නෑම්බිලිය. දැන් මේ නෑම්බිලිය කියන එක මම දකින්නේ බයෝමිමික්‍රි වල තියෙන ප්‍රධානතම දෙයක්. අපි නිකන් අතට ගන්න නෑම්බිලියේ ඔය ඇතුලේ තියෙන රටාව දිහා කවදාකවත් අපි බලලා නැහැ හරියට. හැබැයි මම මේ දකින්නේ අපි කොයිතරම් විදිහට නේචර් එක ෆලෝ කරලා තියෙනවද දශක ගාණක් ඉඳලා. ඒතර නෑම්බිලියෙන් හාල් කරන කිසිම වෙලාවක අපි හිතුවේ නැහැ මේ ගල් ටික අයින් කරලා බත් කන්න ඕනේ කියන රෙසිලියන්ස් එක. බත් ටික විතරක් හැපෙන්න ඕනේ කියන රෙසිලියන්ස් එක අපි අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ. නෑම්බිලියේ අර දකින්න රටා ටික තියෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ පරිසර පද්ධතියේ. මෙතන වතුරත් එක්ක ගල් ටිකක් එද්දී ගල් බේරෙන විදිහ තමයි නෑම්බිලියේ තියෙන රටා ටිකේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒකේ විද්‍යාව තියෙන්නේ තවත් එහාට ගියාම මේක. අපි බැලුවොත් එහෙම කොයි විදිහටද බෙඩ් ලෝඩ් එකක් සහ සස්පෙන්ඩඩ් මැටීරියල් මේවා වෙන්නේ කියන එක. ඉතින් මෙන්න මේක තේරුම් ගත්තාම අපි අතින් වෙලා තියෙන දේවල් ආපහු රෙසිලියන්ස් ඇති කරගන්න වෙනස් කරගන්න පුළුවන් ක්‍රම හිතන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් එහෙම උත්සාහ කරපු දේවල් ටිකක් තමයි මම දැන් පෙන්වන්න යන්නේ. මම ඉස්සෙල්ලාම පෙන්වන්නන්නේ ඒක තේරුම් ගන්න නැතුව අපි ඒවා කරන්න ගියාම අපි කරන වැරදි. මේ තියෙන්නේ අපි කරපු මම මේකට වැරද්දක් කියන්නේ නමුත් මේකේ තේරුම තමයි දැන් මේක බලපුවම මොනවද තේරෙන්නේ මට කවුරු හරි කියන්න පුළුවන්ද මොකද්ද මේ මම පෙන්වන්නේ කියලා නිකන් අදහසක් එනවාද ඊමා මොකද්ද මේ පේන්නේ
මේක මේ ඩ්‍රේන් කරන වතුර ඩ්‍රේන් කරන තැනක් මොකක් හරි වගාවක
හරියටම හරි ෆිෂ් බෝන් එකක් එහෙම නැත්නම් පොල්ලත්තක් වගේ නෙපෙන්නේ
yes
එතකොට
පොල්ලත්තක රටාවක් වගේ දෙයක්
පොල්ලත්තක රටාවක් දැන් නමුත් මෙතන තියෙන මේකයි ඒරම මේ අපි හදලා තියෙන්නේ මේ ඉස්සකොටුවක අපි නැවත කඩලාන ඇති කිරීමට ගන්න උත්සාහයක්. ඒතකොට මොකද්ද මෙතන තියෙන රෙසිලියන්ස් එක? රෙසිලියන්ස් එක තමයි අපි නැවත මේ පරිසර පද්ධතිය යථාවත් කරන්න නම් අපි එතෙන්ට අවශ්‍ය කරන උදම් ජලය අරගෙන එන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි මෙතනදී අර මම කියපු බයෝමිමික්‍රි කියන එක අමතක වෙලා තියෙනවා. පරිසර පද්ධතියක ඉමා දැකලා තියෙනවද කවදාකවත් මෙහිම ජලය යනවා නැහැ. ඒ නිසා තමයි එතනින් ඉගෙන ගත්ත පාඩම අපිව මෙතෙන්ට ගෙනිච්චි. මෙන්න දැන් මේ පැත්තේ තියෙනවා ඩච් කැනල් එක තව ටිකක් එහාට ගියාම අපිට තව මේ ගඟක ගලන රටාව තේරුම් අරගෙන ඒ කොන්ටුවර් එකට අපි ජලය අරගෙන આવොත් අර මම ඉස්සෙල්ලා පෙන්නපු ෆිෂ් බෝන් එක මෙන්න මේ වගේ තත්යකටපත් වෙනවා. අන්න එතනදී අපිට පුළුවන්කම හම්බ වෙනවා රෙසිලියන්ස් කියන එක ඇති කරගන්න. එතකොට වෙනසට අපි කරන වෙනසට උත්තරය තියෙන්නේ පරිසරය ඇතුළෙම පරිසරය අධ්‍යයනය කරලා අපි ගන්න රෙසිලියන්ස් එකෙන්. මේ එක උදාහරණයක්. මම මේ කතා කරේ මම ෆෝම් එකේ නෑම්බිලියෙන් පටන් අරගෙන contoured palmate canal එකකට ආවා. මම එතනින් තව චුට්ටක් ඉස්සරහට ගිහිල්ලා ෆන්ක්ෂන් කියන එකට එනවා. රෙසිලියන්ස් කියන එක තියෙන්නේ අපි පරිසරයේ තියෙන ෆන්ක්ෂන් එක කොච්චර තරමට ඉගෙන ගන්නවද කියන එකට. දැන් ඒකට මම උදාහරණයක් ගන්නවා මෙන්න මේ තැන. මේ තියෙන්නේ අර වගේම පුත්තලම පැත්තේ තියෙන මේ ඇත්තටම වනාන්ත විල්ලුවේ අතහැරලා දාලා තියෙන ඉස්සු කොටුවක්. දැන් මේ පරිසර පද්ධතියේ තියෙන ෆන්ක්ෂන් එක අමතක කිරීම නිසා තමයි අතහැරලා දාලා අවුරුදු ගාණක් ගියත් මේක නිකන් කාන්තාරයක් වගේ නෙපෙන්නේ පේනවනේ බැඳිලා තියෙන ලුණු ප්‍රමාණය. ඉතින් මෙන්න මෙවැනි තැනකදී අපිට ෆන්ක්ෂන් කියන එක අඳුනගත්තාම අපිට යන්න පුළුවන් ක්‍රමයක් මොකද්ද? පළවෙනි එක තමයි මෙහෙම තැනකට අපි සැති කරන්න ඕන නම් මේ පරිසර පද්ධතියට ඒකෙන් ලබාගත යුතු සේවාවන් නැවත ලබා ගන්න ඕන නම් අපි අධ්‍යයනය කළ යුත්තේ මේ පරිසර පද්ධතිය අන්නේ රෙසිලියන්ස් එක දවසකට දෙසරයක් උදම් එන යන තැනක උදම් වලට ඔරොත්තු දීලා ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් විදිහේ කරුමුල් තියෙන කයිරු මුල් තියෙන පරිසර පද්ධතියක් නම් ඇත්තටම රෙසිලියන්ස් සිස්ටම් එක අපි ඇති කරන්න ඕනෙත් ඒකමයි. ඔන්න ඔය නිසා තමයි අපි දැන් අන්න ඒ පරිසර පද්ධතිය නැවත ඇති කරද්දී අර මං ඉස්සෙල්ලා පෙන්නපු කොන්ටුවර්ඩ් පාමේට් කැනෑල් එකක අපි ගිහිල්ලා මෙන්න මේ විදිහට පටන් ගන්න. දැන් මෙතනදී මේ ශාකවලට අපි මුලින්ම මේ දෙපැත්තේ හිටවන ශාකවල තියෙන කරුමුල් ටිකයි කයිරුමුල් ටිකයි වැදගත් දේ. අපි ඕකට කියන්නේ දැන් අපි කියනවා මේකට නර්ස් ඉම්ප්ලාන්ට් කියලා. මේ හිටවල තියෙන රයිසෝපෝරා ටික මේ සිස්ටම් එකේ නර්ස් හැටියට වැඩ කරන්නේ. නර්ස් ඉම්ප්ලාන්ට් එක. හැබැයි අපේ අපේ අවශ්‍යතාවය මොකද්ද? එහෙම ගිහලා අපිට ඇති කරගන්න ඕන තියෙන මෙන්න මේ රෙසිලියන්ස් එක. මේ තියෙන්නේ අපි නිකන්වත් හිටවපු ගහක්වත් නෙමෙයි. රෙසිලියන්ස් එක අපි පරිසර පද්ධතිය ඇති කරපුවාම බයෝමිමික්‍රි පාවිච්චි කරලා පරිසරයම තෝරගන්න ශාකය. දැන් මේ තියෙන උල් මණ්ඩ එහෙම නැත්නම් ඇවිසීනියා මරීනා කියන ගහ. ගහ ආවයින් පස්සේ ඉමා දැන් මෙතන යට බලන්න. ඔය යට තියෙන දුඹුරු පාට කොළත් එක්ක තියෙන්නේ ඔතන තියෙන ගැස්ට්‍රෝපෝඩ්ස්. මෙතන ඉන්නේ මෙටරිබේරියා පැලස්ට්‍රිස් කියන ගැස්ට්‍රෝපෝඩ් කෙනෙක්. දැන් අපි පරිසර පද්ධතියකට රෙසිලියන්ස් එක ඇති කරගන්න අපි මොකද්ද කළ යුත්තේ කියන එකට මම ඒකට තව එක දෙයක් එකතු කරන්නම්. මෙතන කතාවේ තියෙන ගොඩක් දේවල් බලන්න එපා. එහා පැත්තේ තියෙන ගස් ටික දිහා බලන්න. මේ උඩ තියෙන්නේ මොන ගස් ටිකක්ද? ඉපිල් ලියුසිනියා ලිසිසෙෆලා. ඉපිල් බොහෝම ආක්‍රමණිකකාරී ශාකයක්. දැන් ඔය මැද්දේ තියෙන graph එකේ තියෙන්නේ ඉස්සු කොටුවක අපි යට ඉඳලා උඩට නැග්ගොත් එහෙම මේකේ ගැට්ටේ මේකේ කොච්චර ශාක තියෙනවද කියන එක. එතකොට දැන් පේනවද ඉස්සු කොටුවක අපි ගැට්ට උඩටම අපම නැත්නම් C කියන්නේ අපි නිකන් අර උඩට නැග්ගාම උඩම මුදුනේදී තමයි වැඩියෙන්ම කුඩා ශාකත් මධ්‍යම ප්‍රමාණයේ ශාකත් මේ සියල්ලම තියෙන්නේ වැඩිපුර මෙතන. දැන් ඕකත් එක්ක ඊගාවට මම දෙවෙනි මේක පෙන්නුවාම මේ තියෙන ලවණතාවය. එතකොට ලවණ තියෙන පරිසර පද්ධතියක ඉපිල් වගේ ශාකයක් ඇවිල්ලා නවතින්න හේතුව මිනිසා විසින් පරිසර පද්ධතියක් හායනයටපත් කරලා එතන කඳු වැටි වගේ හිටින විදිහට පොන්ඩ් වල බන්ඩ් හදපුවාම එතන ලවණතාවය අඩුයි. ඒක තමයි අර මැද්දේ ලවණ අඩුම තත්ත්වය. එවැනි තත්ත්වයක් තියෙන තැනකදී ආක්‍රමණික ශාක එනවා. එහෙනම් රෙසිලියන්ස් ඇති කරන්න අපිට මොකද්ද කරන්න ඕන වෙන්නේ? අපි නැවත ලවණතාවය ඇති කරන තැනකට යා යුතුයි. දැන් මොයි සේරම කියලා මට අවසානයේ කියන්න තියෙන්නේ ඉතාමත්ම සරල දෙයක්. ඒ තමයි අපි කවුරුත් චේන්ජ් එකකට කැමති නෑ. අපි කවුරුත් චේන්ජ් එකට කැමති නැත්තම් අපිට කරන්න තියෙන්නේ following the rhythm of the biomimicry. එතකොට ඒක කරද්දී අපි සමහර අය ඉදී සමහර අය නැති වෙයි. හැබැයි ඒ මොන දේ වුණත් අපිට හැකියාව තියෙනවා නම් කල්පනාවෙන් බලන් ඉන්න. To understand that nature is slow, nature takes time to change, whereas humans are in a mighty hurry. We don't even want to look at long-term impacts and understand even the nature. This change we are talking today is a slow process. Few days ago, I had Professor Angus from Scotland working with us, and he said after looking at around 130 years of data, they have worked out the flowering season, spring flowering season in Scotland have changed with a matter of only 12 hours.
There you go.
In other words, what it says is even nature takes time for change. But we always try to look at what was there last year, what was here this year, and then we talk about big changes. No, Ima, change takes time. So we have to have the patience to decipher the changes, and then we have to have the wisdom to understand that by following the nature, you could also find solutions to be resilient. So my take-home message for everyone that is here, ඔගොල්ලොන් හැමෝම තේරුම් ගන්න change එක කියන එක අපිට නවත්තන්න බෑ. හැබැයි change එක overnight වෙන්නේ නැහැ. overnight වෙන දේවල් වෙනවා. ප්‍රොෆෙසර් කොටගම කිව්වා වගේ COVID වගේ දේවල් overnight වෙන දේවල් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඒ වගේ දේවල් එක්ක අපි කතා කරන broad change එක ඉතා හිමින් වෙන එකක්. ඒක අධ්‍යයනය කරලා ඒක තේරුම් අරගෙන ඒ change එකට හේතුකාරක දැනගෙන ඒවට පිළිතුරත් අපිට පරිසරයෙන්ම හොයාගන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න එතෙන්ට යන්න පුළුවන් දැනුමක් සහ එතෙන්ට යන්න පුළුවන් සංයමයක් සහ ඒක තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන් පරිසරයට වෙලා ඉඳගෙන විඳින්න පුළුවන් වෙලාවක් හදාගත්තොත් මම හිතනවා change එකට අපිට ධනාත්මක විදිහට උත්තර හොයන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා ඉමා. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, madam. Thanks a lot. That's wisdom. That's wisdom. Thank you very much, both of you, for that the wonderful the revelations of the resilience that we are looking for. So today we have taken a little bit more time, and I don't know whether we have enough time to give to our listeners to ask any questions. I'm trying to give a little bit of time. Sadeepa, do we have enough time before we wrap this up?
Yes, sir. I think we can give 2-3 minutes to them.
All right. So if you all have, this is the time that you all can talk to either Professor Kotagama or Professor Sevandi. Please make use of your time.
Professor Sevandi, would you mind telling in English the presentation in a nutshell?
Oh, okay, sure. So what I was trying to, hope you can hear me.
Can, madam.
Lovely. So what I was trying to elaborate with those photos is that by studying the nature itself, because most answers to the changes we've done is in the nature. And it is not easy. I gave you an example. In order to restore some of the degraded mangroves, which are now abandoned shrimp farms, without understanding the rhythm of the nature, we went ahead and we came up with what we call the fishbone structure. It worked, but it didn't work perfectly. In order to bring the optimal environment back, what we understood is follow the nature, look at the contours, come up with the contoured palmate canals that would bring in the system. And that worked. And at the same time, in thinking about making such change, what we also did was looking at how extreme environments have come up with resilience. So if you take, in this case, mangroves, to withstand the tides, the prop roots, stilt roots, and pneumatophores, numerous number of things are there. And then looking at them, we came up with the concept, okay, let's bring those resilient species as nurse plants, because they are resilient enough. And then it helps other species to come and naturally settle, other species to come in. So at the end of the day, my take-home message was that change is inevitable, but at the same time, change is slow. So having long-term data, analyzing them in order to understand the resilience, the change, and at the same time, using science, creating evidence-based science in order to resist change is the way forward for us to live in a changing world. That doesn't mean the survival of Homo sapiens sapiens is guaranteed, but it means You will always be challenging the nature, and that's what we need from you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, Ifam. And is there any other questions, please? Shoot.
Yes, sir. Can I ask?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Sir, this is my question. I'm. I can ask it in a bit of short. Because can you say us the process uh, what we used to do this biomimicry, because I'm thinking about how to reduce in environmentally radioactivated water that comes from nuclear plants. Then I have a deep thinking about how to settle down that with environmental natural conditions. Then can you help me, sir?
Radioactive water, like coming from the nuclear facilities. Are you mean to say?
Yeah, sir.
All right. Okay. So you want to make them naturalized and then put it
Yeah.
back into the nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're asking us like how to do this in a manner that
Biomimicry.
nature do. Is there any way that Professor Kotagama, can you help him, sir?
Well, I am not competent to talk about bioactivity today, but I can just give you a simple example. If
Yes.
there's too much calcium in the water, make use of plants
Yes.
to get rid of the calcium. When there's too much, let's say, pollutants, we use iconia, Japan Jabara to do that.
Yes.
So I'm sure absorbing these radioactive material or substances by a plant should be possible, but I wouldn't be competent enough to advise
Well,
who was the person who asked the question what to do.
Actually,
But
sir,
experimentation is the only way forward.
yes, some of the
yes.
I have seen the documentaries, and I strongly recommend you to do a little bit of search on Chernobyl. And there's apparently they have found out like certain organisms like mushrooms are eating away those radioactives, and they are thriving on it, like actually. So they are actually, the scientists are trying to make use of such organisms to reclaim the areas that has been affected by Chernobyl, and in future accidents, like then they can have a ready answer for such accidents or such incidents. So I'm sure, it's a very pertinent question. Even I wanted to ask you, we didn't have enough time for us to go through those points that we were planning to talk.
Excuse me,
Yes.
sir. Actually, I want a procedure to do this process, not experiment. How ඒ කියන්නේ සර් මම කොහොමද ඒ කියන්නේ step by step මේක process කරන්න කියන එක කියන්නේ biomimicry වලට steps මොනවා හරි තියෙනවද සර්?
නෑ පුතේ, එහෙම මම දන්න තරමට නැහැ. අපි ඒක ඉන්වෙන්ට් කරන්න වෙලා තියෙන දෙයක්. ඔය අහන ඒරියා එක විශේෂයෙන්ම රේඩියෝ ඇක්ටිව් ඒරියා එක, because අපිට ඒවට උත්තර නැහැ ගොඩක් සයන්ටිස්ට්ලට තවමත්. ඉතින් ඒකට හොයන්න හොඳම තැන තමයි search papers, research papers දැනට කරපු ඒවා තියෙනවා Chernobyl site එක ගැන සහ Fukuoka ගැනත් ඇති. මම දන්නේ නැහැ. මම Chernobyl එක ගැන කියවලා තියෙනවා. So try to find out like on the internet, and then the other sources. There must be like lots of sources. ඔයා හොයන්න පටන් ගත්තාම ඔයාට එන්න පටන් ගන්නවා ගොඩක් information.
පොඩක් මේ ජිතුක ඒ අදහස තුළ ඔයාගේ පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. හිතන්න එපා හෙට කරනකොට පිළිතුරු එනවා කියලා. දැන් ඔය කිව්වෙත් ඒකයි. කරපු දේවල් මත ජෛව සහාය අරගෙන කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් මොනවාද? බයෝමිමික්‍රි කියන්නේ ඒකයි. අපි ඒක වේශ රූපණය කිරීමක්. ජෛව වේශ රූපණය. ජෛව වේශ රූපණය කියන්නේ ස්වභාවයේ තියෙන දේ පාවිච්චි කරලා ප්‍රශ්නේ විසඳා ගැනීම. එතකොට ජිතුක කරන්න ඕන මොනවාද තියෙන්නේ? ඒකයි මම කිව්වේ දැන් අපි කැල්සියම් වැඩියෙන් තියෙනවා කුමුක් වලින් අපි ඒක අඩු කරගත්තා. එහෙම නැත්නම් වතුරේ තියෙනවා නම් බරලෝහ වර්ග තියෙනවා නම් ක්‍රෝමියම් වගේ දේවල් තියෙනවා නම් ඒක අයිකෝනියා පැලේ හරිටවලා අයින් කරගත්තා. ඉතින් දැන් මෙතුමා කිව්වෙත් ඒකයි. සමහර ශාක වලට සමහර දේවල් අවශෝෂණය කරලා අයින් කරවන්න හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක එකපාරට එන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක ජෛව වේශරූපණයෙන් ගන්න දෙයක් තමයි. බයෝමිමික්‍රි වලින් ගන්න දෙයක්. හැබැයි ඒක එකපාරට එන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක පරිේශනාත්මකව තමයි කරන්න වෙන්නේ. පරිේශන නොකර කරන්න බෑ ඒක.
ඒක කරපු ඔය අහන මං හිතන ප්‍රශ්නේ ඒක කරපු ඒවා තියෙනවද කියලා
දන්න තරම් ඉතින් මම කියන්නේ.
ඒක අපි දන්නවා අඩුයි අපේ එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් ලෙවල් එකට යනවා අඩුයි අපේ පතේට අයිති නැති දෙයක් ඒක තවම හැබැයි මම කියවලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මම දන්නවා මේ වගේ දේවල් වෙනවා මේ වගේ දේවල් ගැන එක්ස්පෙරිමන්ට්ස් උත් කරනවා කියලා. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා පුතේ ඔයාලට පුළුවන් හොයාගෙන යන්න.
නෑ සර් මං අහන්නේ මේ කරපියා තියනවාද කියලා නෙමෙයි. ඒ කියන්නේ මං කරන්න ගන්නවා නම් ඒක මේ කොයි ප්‍රොසෙස් එකෙන්ද ස්ටාර්ට් කරන්න ඕන කියන තමයි
ඒක තමයි අපේ ප්‍රොෆෙසර් කිව්වේ ඔයාට. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයා ඒක ප්‍රශ්න දිහා බලලා ඊට පස්සේ ඒකට නේචර් එකේ මොනවද තියෙන ආන්සර්ස් කියලා අපි අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න වෙනවා ඉස්සෙල්ලම. එතකොට අපි හිතමු අපේ ෆුකුෝකා වල තියෙන මේවකේ වතුර ප්ලාන්ට් එකේ වතුර යනකොට ඒකේ තියෙන රේඩියෝ ඇක්ටිව් ඇබ්සෝබ් කරන දේවල් තියෙනවද කියලා අපිට බලන්න වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක බලන්න නම් ඔයා එතනට යන්න වෙනවා. ඒ වතුර අරගෙන ඇබ්සෝබ් කරපු මොන හරි තියෙනවද? ඒකෙන් විකෘතියක් වුණ දේවල් තියෙනවද? එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ ප්ලාන්ට් එකේ වතුර වල විකිරණශීලත්වය නැති වෙන්නේ මොන වගේ හේතු උඩද කියන දේ හොයන්න පටන් ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒකට ඒ එක්ස්පෙරිමන්ට්ස් වලට පාලක පරීක්ෂණ වගේ දේවල් තියෙනවා. පාලිත පරීක්ෂණ, පාලක පරීක්ෂණ කියලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒවා අනුව හොයන්න ඕනේ. මේක ලොකු ඒරියා එකක අහන ප්‍රශ්නේ. එකපාරකට උත්තර දෙන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. Simple.
Two more questions. Can we just quickly take them?
One question. My pleasure to listen to both of my gurus. And Professor, AI, a bit on AIA, Professor. You were spot on, Professor. A bit on AIA.
Yeah. Well, what I just said on AI is that when people say it is artificial intelligence, I say, what do you mean by artificial? It's not artificial. We have been doing this now. Right along, we have been doing this. But today, because we are getting the machine to do it, we are thinking that it is artificial. That's why I said we are getting the machine to assist our intelligence.
Intelligence, yes.
So if you change it around, you won't get frightened of what is coming. Why we are getting frightened of what is coming is because we think there is an alien thing. It is not alien.
It is not alien.
Part of ourselves, right? Yeah. Whether it will replace the workforce because of an artificial intelligent machine is not something new. It has been happening all the time.
Yes.
And if it is going to happen faster, that's it. But it is assisting us, our life, at the end of the day. If not, what will be it? So, yeah, you should write something on that. If you're always good at writing these things. No?
I had always written, and Professor was spot on, like Professor Charlie used to tell, London School of Economics. Exactly what I'm very happy, Professor, to learn from a local, right? Exactly. On the spot on.
Right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ifam. Thanks a lot. And is there any other questions? Like
there are two hands. I don't know. Hasanti, what is it?
Professor, I actually don't have a question. I have a comment to make, if you don't mind.
No, I think you should.
So like my current research is actually very related to these things. So like
getting mixed up.
Ilanka, can you turn off your
like two people coming. Now it's getting confused.
Sorry. So like since we talked about the change, the evolution, and the COVID pandemic, so like I would like to make this comment, like so like it's like the change is so like unavoidable. That is exactly what is conveyed by evolutionary theory, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, evolutionary theory.
No, it's not really based that way. You can't say that evolution is unavoidable. It is avoidable in a way if you know what is going to happen to you, right? The difference is evolutionary change is happening with the change in the environment. COVID also does happen, but it is the rapidness of the change that matters. That is the distinction you have to make. Evolutionary change is gradual, but a COVID change, which was very fast and very quick, was a rapid change. And that is why it is not evolutionary considered as a good change. Otherwise, so it's like a change.
So like in one of the articles I read very recently, they have mentioned that this COVID pandemic is also a result of the biodiversity loss.
Well, you can argue, but how do we know that it is so?
No,
these are very good predictions, right? But do we really know when it happened? do we really know where it originated even today?
No, we don't know.
We don't know. So it's wrong to, people can write these things and scientists also sometimes say these things, but I think we have to be very cautious about it. It is a change of a microorganism that we believe that was part of an animal life, which was living in, they say pangolins, then they try to say something else, all of these things, whatever it is, it changed, it mutated to become a different organism. And that can happen all the time. But when that mutation happened, it took advantage of the situation that prevailed and got effective. So the problem is, why did we enable it to change? If we were to succumb the situation and not allow it to become anymore, right? So one of the, of course, because it was killing people, we had to look after that. We didn't have time to go back and ask, was it really from the pangolins, or was it really from the lab, or was it really from nature? All of that, we didn't have time because people were dying and there was no point in arguing with the Chinese did it or the Americans did it or the Russians did it. It made no sense. Humanly, it is not sensible, right? But subsequently, we can sit down to look at all of these things and you will see that this may have become a trigger point somewhere. And these things do happen in nature. Fortunately, they don't become COVID-like. Fortunately, such trigger points happen all the time because we carry influenza in our throat all day, right? It is just that when we become weak, the fellow jumps off, right? That does not mean that the influenza doesn't mutate. It does mutate, but it mutates with the conditions of the person. But when the person gets weak, it takes the upper hand. So these are norms in nature. So we can't blame anybody as such, but the blame game always exists, unfortunately. Right. I think time is catching up. There was one other person, Ishan Rajasurya, and maybe we should close up.
Professor, thank you, Professor. My question is, Professor, for the biomimicry and these topics remain a little towards the academia, is my opinion, Professor. ඒක අපි කොහොමද mainstream කරන්නේ, let's say in the tea industry, in the tea plantation side. I don't see this are institutional guidelines a very practical steps, but you have these new themes like regenerative agriculture and these new stories coming, Professor, which is also talking about the same. How do you get like the research organization to give guidelines to the operational commercialized factors to take this in, Professor? Not that it's not there, but it's not there in a direct form. Was the opinion? I might be wrong.
Correct. I do understand. The thing is, anything in the human world, for it to go forward, we must feel that it benefits us. No, unfortunately, we are that selfish, right? Now you are talking about the industry, right? If we make use of the biomimicry products of tea, you will see the Kachan brings us one of the best types of tea in this world, in this country. I believe you understand Kachan, the dry wind that comes across. So the Hakutale, what is that area, that patch out all the way down to Bandaravela side, right?
Correct.
Gives the best tea because the quality of the tea leaf changes with the dryness of the air. Now, the problem is, unless we recognize that, we are not going to use it. So that's why I said we are very selfish. Even in biomimicry, sometimes we know it works, but how can we duplicate it to benefit us? Today, we are recognizing it more than anything. So biomimicry is not just only, as Sevandi showed in the separation of the stones from the rice, but we are doing it very much. In fact, in the history, we have been doing it much more than today. We have forgotten it and come to this so-called high-tech and forgotten the I would say the biomimic solutions that we have had in the past. There's a lot. Now we see in the green building concepts, there's a lot coming back today because we are now realizing that we moved away from them again because of the benefits that we were seeking from the actions that we do. The cost benefit is what we are always looking at. So somewhat a little distorted in our thinking, but what to do? That is human mind. So let's try to go back. So in a way, we are trying to go back, but we can't go back to the Homo habilis time, no, we can't go back beyond 12,000 years now. We will still have to manage agriculture, regenerative agriculture, you see, sustainability going into all the areas. Sustainable tourism becomes regenerative tourism, like industry, everything changing. We are changing words with the respect of understanding. Please give me last 1 minute, right? Because what you are saying is very significant. I was just jotting down some things. Now we often talk, now see, Ditwa happened. Was it a disaster or a hazard that was? So we don't understand these two, right? I won't go to explain the difference, but a hazard is a natural process. A disaster is when it happens to us. In the same way, when we say resilient, pratisthapitad, pratyasthatid. In Sinhala also, it's very important, right? When we say resilient, what do we mean? As I said, that's why I wanted to break it down and said, resist alliance. That is, we want to not do it, but we still want to do it. And so that's how we adjust to becoming what we are. So
Yes.
In that sense, what you have said is right. That is the thought process that is prevailing. But globally, we know people are falling more into nature, and more of what naturalness has given us in the past is what we are seeking to find answers, because the natural answers are more cost effective than what we are doing today. Right. I think that is enough for the day.
That is enough. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sadeepa, it's over to you.
Vasana. Vasana, are you there?
Okay, a huge thank you to our distinguished research person and the moderator for that great and interesting discussion. I'm certain every one of us leaving this discussion with a renewed sense of wonder for the natural world and a deeper appreciation for the resilience it holds. I would like to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude to our valuable resource persons, Professor Emeritus Sarath Kotagama and Professor Sevandi Jayapadi, for generously sharing your knowledge, your passion, and your time with us this evening. Your insights have been truly invaluable. Also, a special thank you to our wonderful moderator, Mr. Imaduva Priyadarshana, for facilitating such a rich and engaging discussion. So you have made this discussion very interesting. We also wish to extend our sincere appreciation to the entire team of gapHQ, whose dedication, vision, and hard work make evenings like this possible. Thank you for your tireless efforts behind the scenes. And of course, our deepest gratitude goes to every one of our participants for joining us tonight, for your curiosity, and for your commitment for a more sustainable future. So, this is only the beginning. The Nature Talk webinar series continues, and we would like to warmly invite you for the upcoming sessions as we keep exploring what nature can taught us. So, we would like to invite for you for the webinar number 2, themed under Nature's Social Intelligence for Human Communities, conducted by Professor M.T.M. Mahesh from University of Colombo. So, the session will be held on 21st of April 2026. So, until we meet again, let us carry the lessons of nature. Thank you all. Have a good night.